Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our guest, Mr. Terry Mixon, introduce himself to our listeners and viewers at home.
Hello. I'm doing the Queen wave.
Very manly.
Very manly. I thought so. You know, Queen Elizabeth, she was manly. Sort of. Hi, I'm Terry Mixon. I write science fiction.
Okay, and so the next part of the introduction, dear listeners, how we found them. So I actually found Terry through his Dead Robot Society podcast way back before my first book was even published. And then I started reading the Empire of Bone saga, and now I stalk him. Eventually, I will convince him that Jared is the main character and not that Princess Kelsey nonsense. But
not happening.
So speaking of, are you going to go back to, I know you're writing the end of that series. Are you going to go back to Imperial Marines, or did your schedule get too busy?
I want to go back to Imperial Marines, and eventually I will do so, but there are issues that I need to wait out at least another 3 years or so before doing it.
Is it because you want, is there anything you could talk about? Because if it's business side, I get, you don't want to address that.
I want to let the license that I signed to have Podium do the audio expire before I write any more books in that series.
Oh, that makes sense. Veronica does a much better job with the military stuff than whoever they had. I was screaming at my car radio when I listened to some of the pronunciations.
I was not, well, I don't like to speak ill of business partners, but it has not been a very decent relationship from my point of view.
Understood. That was one of the ones that I think also having the Empire of Bone saga finished also helps, because you don't have to worry about connecting plot points at that point.
Wait a second. Who says it's done?
I thought you said you were writing the last one.
Still waiting on it to get back from the editor.
Okay, so
I wrote three Imperial Marines books before I wrote the last one.
Okay. I mean, there's definitely room in that world to go back to. Lots of people have ideas. At one point in time, you even talked about potentially bringing someone on to write one of those offshoots, but I don't know whatever happened to that.
Whatever happened to it is me deciding that I just wanted to keep full control of my IP. That's all.
Absolutely understandable. Although I have written in other people's IP where they maintain full control, but it's also a hassle because you got to write a whole big world Bible and make sure everything's consistent.
Yeah, that smells like work. I'm a writer. I don't work. What the heck?
I can tell you on the other end, when I was writing for Tim Taylor's Human Legion stuff, and my last book drastically changed because the plans, because my book series was always intended to link back up with his. And so my characters ended their lives in his last novel. And so when he changed his plans, I had to change mine. And it could be frustrating on the creative side when you had this whole big thing planned and you're like, nope, got to end it here. So I get why it's difficult to manage. So, okay. All right. So because this is the Blasters and Blades podcast, we do have the religion question. So are you ready for this, sir?
If we've got to have questions, go ahead.
All right. Escape from New York, Mad Max, or Blade Runner?
Definitely Escape from New York, because who doesn't like Snake Plissken?
All of those are excellent choices. It's a trick question. I like all of the movies I listed for this one. And because we're polytheistic, Waterworld, Escape from LA, or Judge Dredd?
I think that you should immediately be thrown out for doing Waterworld. What the hell? What the hell, man?
It was cheesy, campy, but it was good.
Oh, no. No. We're going to go with Judge Dredd. And we're not talking, Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd. We're talking Carl Urban Judge Dredd here.
Why don't you like the Stallone one? Is it the acting?
Oh, I liked it. I liked it too, but it's a little too campy for my taste. Comparing the two, definitely the one with Carl Urban is better.
So is that you don't generally like campy shows when it comes to that?
Oh, no, I love campy shows. But Urban did such a kick-ass job that I like that movie better.
Okay. And one more for the road. So 28 Days Later, Train to Busan, or Night of the Living Dead?
I've only seen Night of the Living Dead out of that 3, and I wasn't impressed with that either. Can't we just go ahead and go with the later ones that are more Ash-centric?
Okay, that's acceptable. Train to Busan is one of the few times I will endorse subtitles because it's a Korean film, so it's obviously not in English. It's worth the subtitles.
See, my friends dragged me out to see. I can't even remember the name of the sequel to Night of the Living Dead. That they went more humor than horror.
Right.
And they were, I just like, I don't want to go see a horror movie. They dragged me out anyway. I ended up having a great time. They all thought it sucked. So it was a great payback. Karma's a bitch.
You take some, you lose some. All right. So what is your favorite impetus for a post-apocalyptic story in fiction?
Well, what do you mean by that? Impetus in what way?
They've always got some inciting incident that causes the apocalypse that then the story
Okay,
takes.
so you're talking the cause of the apocalypse.
Correct.
I think the most interesting cause of the apocalypse is collapse of the financial markets. Everything just coming apart.
Is that because you've been reading the news today?
Well, yes, as a matter of fact. No, no.
Okay.
EMPs are fun. I don't think viruses are any good, but what do I know anyway? If it has zombies in it, just get rid of it now because it's not really post-apocalyptic. It's just you twiddling your thumbs. That's my opinion.
Okay. So you don't dislike zombies, you just don't think they're post-apocalyptic.
I just think that you're taking an easy out when you try World War Z. I just don't think it's any good.
Okay. Why financial over, say, World War III and the nuclear apocalypse that was popular in the 80s and 90s?
Financial collapse leaves a lot more of the infrastructure intact, and there's a lot more people fighting over it. I think that gives you much more opening to have some really bloody stuff going on.
That's fair. I've heard people speculate that if the nuclear type apocalypse ever came where we got knocked down to the Stone Age, coming back would be a lot more difficult, even if we knew what we were doing, because all of the easily accessible resources have already been claimed. So you'd need the technology to get the replacements. So,
to a degree, I suspect that's true.
So that one is one where I don't know that we would come back from something like that.
I personally want to see a post-apocalyptic movie where they've got a horse-drawn Tesla. That's what I want to see.
Okay, the Tesla car or the Tesla truck?
The truck.
So there's a funny video floating around right now because, obviously Tesla's all the rage, and we won't get political, but this Tesla truck driver moved into the country and he wanted to be like the boys. So he took his Tesla truck mudding with the Fords and the Dodges and the whatever.
How'd that work out for him?
He got stuck in the water when they're crossing the muddy Ford, and he's just sitting there revving the engine trying to get out. And I'm like, first off, that's how you dig yourself in, sir. And second, like,
good luck with that battery.
That, and everyone was laughing too hard at the idiocy of thinking he could do it to rush out and save him. So, and that's the other part, is the Tesla truck sits too low to do real off-roading.
And those batteries are heavy.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't driven one. I just know it looks like something we all drew in second grade. So, I mean, I don't know anything about the quality of the vehicle. But
there's a couple that live in our neighborhood, and every time I see them, all I can do is roll my eyes and say, why would anyone buy the ugliest vehicle on the face of the planet?
I have seen some of the four-door Tesla cars that aren't horrible looking. It's just
the Cybertruck. It's ugly.
The Cybertruck looks ugly. I agree with you. And then the silver job, it just, I don't know. So I've seen some people shine it to a mirror shine, and then you're just like that
blinding everybody around you. Good luck with that when you
right.
get into a car accident.
It's one of those ones where it doesn't take much to total the car because the battery's so expensive, I imagine. But yeah, it just was funny. I saw that. Although horse-drawn Tesla would be hilarious.
The horse-drawn Cybertruck is what I want to see.
Yeah, you could get the Pepperidge Farm guy in there making jokes. Pepperidge Farm.
You could.
When I was getting out of the Army, I went to in Pennsylvania. There was near one of those Amish communities, and I was driving out there as part of the honor guard to do a funeral, right? So we were doing like the 21 gun salute, carrying the casket for a World War II veteran who died, who had no family. And while we're driving out there, we had this horse-drawn buggy pull up beside us, and the guy's stomping on where the gas pedal would be, wanting us to race him in his horse buggy. We went for it at first, and then my first sergeant was like, no, Sergeant Handley, you let him win. Man's got to have his pride. I'm like, okay. So we let him win. Now the question is, did he really think he won? I don't think he's probably that stupid.
Amish people are not stupid.
No. You want to be friends with them if the apocalypse ever comes because they'll feed you.
This is true.
Okay. So what? Obviously, we brought you here to talk about the Humanity Unlimited saga, which right now is 4 books.
Wait a second. We had a topic? I thought I was just dropping in.
But before we do that, we've got to wrap up one more important question for you, sir. Because we are civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, we are no longer knuckle dragging troglodytes. Coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
Coffee. And it's going to have to be, pretty sweetened up and got to have that creamer in there too.
Now, I noticed when I'm reading right now, because you just cost me like $112 because I had to buy 10 audio credits because you're a jerk.
Life goals.
Don't spend it all in one place. So I was listening to, I'm working my way through the last Hunter series. As we record this a week before this airs.
Spoiler, everyone dies.
Eventually, everyone does. This is a true story. But so I'm on book 12, and you have lots of scenes where coffee is involved, and none of those heathen tea drinkers, and I approve.
This is the way it rolls.
So you can make the bad guys drink tea, because that seems diabolical.
I'll think about that next series.
There you go. All right. One of the things that we like to ask, because you did serve in the military, do you think that your time in the Army affects the way you tell stories?
Sure. I believe that there's 2 aspects to that. First of all, that's where I did plenty of role playing, running games every weekend, every minute that I had loose, running games or playing in games for 5 years. So yeah, that definitely had an impact right there. As far as how I conduct things that have a military demeanor to it, while I may not have done every military job, I certainly know how the military talks and how they think.
Okay. Do you draw from people you served with? I know you didn't make a career of it. You would think you did 4 and you were out, correct?
I actually was in for 5.
Okay. That's an odd number. How did that happen?
It is an odd number. There's a secret to it.
You like piss on the general's Wheaties or something?
Well, when you're sneaking around with the general's daughter and then things happen, that's how it works.
I believe it. It was the beard, right? Is the beard that got her?
Well, not the beard up top.
Okay. So you did 5 years. That's unique. Did you was it no, you weren't in during war, were you? So it wasn't an extension because of the...
I was in between 83 and 88.
So what caused your extension?
I cannot say.
Oh, okay. I know what it is. You were part of that secret military cabal that went out and conquered Mars, didn't you?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
I believe it. You're diabolical like that. You probably even built the base on the backside of the moon. So
somebody's got to dig out the green cheese, buddy.
So do you draw on people that you served with for the military, or is it so far removed it's more archetypes?
It's so far removed it's just archetypes.
So which one did you fit into in your unit? Were you the guy with the knives, the overly educated professor type?
I don't know that I actually fit into any one of them cleanly.
Okay.
I wasn't paying attention to myself. I was just watching other people. You'd have to ask somebody to serve with me what they think.
Do you still talk to anybody you serve with?
Not after all these years, no.
Okay. And so you've obviously, the way you tell stories is affected by your experience with the military and just knowing how it works in general. I have never shook my fist at the sky when you wrote military characters, because some of them I'm just not yours, just in general. You get that, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
I've seen plenty of that too.
Where the E4 is yelling at the colonel or whatever. And I'm not saying that stuff didn't happen.
Good luck with that.
There's fallout from that. When I was in Iraq, we had the Sergeant Major's tour, USO tour, that came in Christmas 2004. And this one dude starts cussing him out and saying, I didn't sign up to go to war and he wants to go home. And I can tell you he got away with it right up until the MPs got involved, and there were consequences for that. Of course, the Sergeant Major had a sense of humor. So after he did his year in the brig or whatever it was, his calendar of in-country time reset to 0. So he had to start his tour over again. And he wasn't getting combat pay for the half he was in the brig in Kuwait City. or Kuwait, wherever.
Yikes.
Karma
Yikes.
Karma can be your friend, or not so much.
Payback's a bitch.
And they, the ones that were in the brig in Kuwait were literally digging holes to fill sandbags that were being used for fortifying positions and such. 140 degrees. I don't want to be out anywhere with a shovel digging holes. That was. We have backhoes for that when we can get away with it. But of course, why pay for gas for a backhoe when you've already got the privates you're paying, right?
Why? You got to make them pay.
I can guarantee you it was a good reason not to go to that brig.
There's plenty of good reasons not to go to the brig.
That's one of many. They don't have good booze there, allegedly.
They don't got any booze there, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I imagine some gets through at Leavenworth because every jail ends up having that guy who's turning the grape juice into crappy wine. I mean, I've seen those movies like Shawshank Redemption. We know what really goes on. The Green Mile. I mean, I'm pretty much an expert at that point. Okay, so does the way you engage with content, be it books, movies, etc., has that changed since your time in the Army? Or, I mean, you were already reading a lot, so...
I was already a big-time reader anyway. I would say that I'm still the same person I was before and after as far as consumption.
Now, given, that you were raised in Texas, if I remember correctly, right?
That's true.
So it wasn't like guns and some of that kind of stuff that people would normally be like, oh, no, they didn't count the bullets. I imagine, given your upbringing, you were already aware of that kind of detail.
I grew up in a very rural area, so yes.
So are you ever going to put a safety on a pistol just because, even though it's a future pistol, to tweak people's noses? I think you should.
I don't believe I've ever mentioned a safety on any of the pistols. I might have mentioned something about it, but I deal in flechette pistols, so I can do whatever I want.
No, the pistol, the Gauss pistol that the Novarites had, and I can tell you this because I just got done. It definitely had a safety on it. So
well, there you go.
But it was more on, off, or really on because it shot really fast. I don't think you technically called it a safety. And if it's powered and you turn it off, is that considered a safety or is that just turning it off?
That's a great question, and I think it depends on whether you pronounce it tomato or tomato.
And then how you spell it. Okay, so the Humanity Unlimited saga. Now we can talk about that because we've got through all the nonsense. So what was the inspiration for you for writing this post-apocalyptic story in the way that you did?
It wasn't a post-apocalyptic story.
Humanity Unlimited? You certainly advertised it as such.
No, I did not. I don't know what you're thinking of. Maybe you're thinking of the sole post-apocalyptic book I written, but the Humanity Unlimited series, Civilization on Earth, we're still just fine. Thanks. Now, the aliens outside may have collapsed and gone into some type of post-collapse society, but that definitely wasn't the human beings.
I don't know why I thought
Are you sure you read the same books as I wrote? I'm just not so sure anymore.
I've read all 4 of them. I thought you qualified it as post-apocalyptic.
Pretty sure I never used those words for it.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. Okay, so you started this obviously in the Guatemalan jungle on a dig site. Like the idea of
who doesn't want to know what's under the cigarettes? Who really doesn't want to know?
I mean, but you could have put that the initial contact with the alien ship. You could have put it anywhere. Why there? Was there anything like? Was it you watched Indiana Jones as a kid and that was why?
That was part of it, but the main reason was because it's so isolated. You have entire cities that are underneath the jungle there that no one even knows they're there until they can run the right software, the right scanning radars over it to know that there's something buried under that jungle. So it was a great place to hide something in plain sight and say it's been there for 1,000 years.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I've seen some where they like the Marianas Trench kind of thing or buried underwater as a popular theme. So I remember reading that and wondering why specifically the jungle? I mean, it's cool. I don't have a problem with it. It's just an interesting choice.
It was because I write everything because it interests me.
Okay.
And when I started writing, that was the scenery that interested me.
Okay. Was it anything specific about it that interested you, or you just in general liked the temples and such?
In general, but it also gave me the ability to go ahead and put stuff underneath it that I could play with. If I put something underwater or in the Marianas Trench, that's a little bit more difficult to access and have things like underground facilities.
Fair. I mean, alien tech, you can magic wave your hand, but
yeah, but I didn't make the aliens in that series that advanced.
Not
really.
I mean, no. I mean, they had the technology. It was kind of Stargate vibe.
Yeah, it was, but if you look at the people in Stargate, mostly they're not so far away. Their ships are just as fragile as ours when you blow them up.
Fair. And who doesn't love a good explosion? So when you wrote this, I've noticed one of the things you like to do is take humans and have them transplanted other places by aliens. You did it in the Empire of Bone saga. You did it in the Last Hunter series. You did it in Humanity Unlimited. Is there anything about that trope that you use that makes it appealing to you?
Sure, I get to use human beings, which is familiar to everyone, and put them in different circumstances and change them in ways that I find interesting.
Okay. When you write these, I know you tend not to plot things out too much. Do you generally have an idea of where it's going to go, or are you always surprised as you write it?
When you say I tend not to know where I'm going when I do this, I think you understate it. I have no clue where I'm going when I start writing a book.
Okay. So you just hope it all works out with the synchronicity later? Or
I usually, at least with the first book, I have a firmish idea of where I think the story, that particular novel might end. Maybe by the time I'm halfway through the book, it's not there anymore, and I've changed course. That happens a lot. And the reason it happens a lot is because when I'm writing, I do not say no when something cool occurs to me. I immediately change the story and head for the cool thing.
Okay. That's a good rule of cool to do something. So one of the questions, because we get not a lot. We have several families that listen to the show, when they're looking for new content. So what age range would you say the Humanity Unlimited saga is? If you're going to use like a movie rating, because everyone's familiar with it, how would you rate it? PG-13?
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that.
I don't graphically curse, and I don't, get into all kinds of gory, bloody detail about death. So, and there's no sex. So I think that pretty much qualifies.
Yeah. So when you're creating the aliens, because aside from the humans, which you've done, how do you go about creating them? Is this something that you lean into your gaming experience, or do you tend to prefer using the natural world around you, like animals and nature on Earth?
I love how you give me credit for so much forethought. I have no idea. I just make up what seems cool. I really don't have a clue when I'm starting. I am a discovery writer, pure and simple. If I need an alien, I start thinking what would be cool. What would be cool to make this alien look like, and how to change the story around to make that fit. That's what I do.
So has writing, when you're not the sole writer, like now that you're writing for Mr. Moneybags, Jay and Cheney, has that been hard for you? It's
a little bit more difficult than writing by myself, but not tremendously so.
I was asking more about the change of process in that you tend to outline for those books in ways you wouldn't on your own.
Yeah, and that's hard. Doing that, mainly I have to do that for the first book in the series. And that's so that we're all on the same page of what we think the story's going to be. But I tell them flat out, there's no telling if it's going to be this way when I finish writing it.
Okay.
I don't stick to the outline that I submit.
Do you think you're ever going to switch? You write a lot of third person limited, so it's a one POV, but third person. Do you foresee at some point in time writing some of these stories first person?
I started writing first person before I published under my own name. So I've got experience doing it. I like third person limited better. It gives me the same pluses, and it just feels right.
Okay. It's when you do first person, you are limited by what the character would know in POV. So
Well, in third person limited, you're limited the same way.
But when you're looking from above, you can describe things that he might not see. So you got
that's not third person limited though. That's third person omniscient.
Okay, you're right. It's been a while since I've taken English Lit. Okay, so when you're writing these characters, do you like sketch character sheets like you would with gaming, or do you just keep everything in your head?
I make notes as I write so that I try not to forget what somebody's hair color is, or if they've got some traits that I want to keep in mind. That's about it.
So when you talk about traits, like if you're doing accents would be one of those things you're writing down, or is that mostly done by your narrator? I listen to everything, so I don't think I've actually read the print version to see.
That's done by the narrator. I don't specify anything about accents.
So like we'll use a popular example. Some people like to write the Scottish brogue, right? If you were doing that, would you write it as it would be phonetically, or do you trust her to translate it, or whoever?
I would trust the translation. I would write it how I would write anybody else. If you start getting cute and you start writing, the really twisted language there, you have readers that go, "What does this say? What is that again?"
Okay, that's fair. Have you ever been surprised then with the accent she assigns to people?
Sometimes. Mostly it's been a positive. Occasionally it's not been positive. And I've had to go, please redo this one because I can't stand it.
Okay. Do you have like character lists, or do you just have that good of a memory? Because I got to tell you, I have to write.
I have no way. I've got a character list and I still end up duplicating names. It happens.
Yeah, isn't it Paul Cooley you killed a couple times because of that?
No, I didn't. I killed him off just once. I didn't have him in there twice, but I've had a couple of names in the Empire of Bones series that have existed twice.
Okay. That's
other than you, where I killed you twice in that series.
Yeah, but it wasn't bloody enough. You could do better.
Oh, the other one was bloody.
I know, and I still think you could do better. I mean, we want like Hot Shots Part 2 levels of.
Well, insanity. The listeners here just need to know. You told me that you wanted blood, and I said I'm going to use a plasma weapon, and there's not even going to be a molecule left of it. That's how mean I am.
When you sent that to me, I was laughing, but I was cursing you in my head. That is one of the short stories, I believe, in the Humanity Unlimited series, which you can get, not Humanity Unlimited, excuse me, the Empire Bone series, which you can get if you buy the box set of the audio.
Yeah, this is correct.
Is it in did you do omnibus editions for the print or for the ebooks as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's in there as well.
Is that something when you do publishers packs, you're going to go back to writing new content with it, or was it just not something?
Hardly anybody even made a comment about it, so it's just not worth the time to do it.
So I was the only weirdo who liked it. Okay.
Pretty much, yeah.
I actually had already, by the time you're doing the omnibus, I already owned all the books in the omnibus, and I bought them when you had the new content, just for the new content.
Boy, you're just putting me through coffee every day, man.
I do what I can. One of these days you're gonna be able to get Donna to supersize her combo meal. You'd be like,
I don't know.
You know what?
She's not allowed to have any fries. No, sorry, not happening.
So mean, so strict. Okay, so given that this is one of the first things you've written a lot of books since you wrote the Humanity Unlimited series. Is there anything looking back at it you might do differently if you were doing it now?
I think that I made one mistake about the middle of the series where I was going too long and I had to bring the book to a close before it was actually ready to be closed off. And that was not a good thing. I would not repeat that.
I could see how that could be frustrating if you were listening to it and waiting for each one to be published. When I listened to them, they were all done. I had bought them at the time and forgot I owned them. And as the economy has tightened up.
Thanks for that, man.
Well, as the economy tightened up, I'm like, hey, let me see if there are books that I haven't listened to that I already own. And I'm like, Humanity Unlimited. Let me give Terry a shot. I've written reviews for it that should go up eventually to Upstream Reviews because.
Well, this was Humanity Unlimited that I was talking about that I did that too.
Yeah, it was good though. I enjoyed it.
Empire Bones, I meant. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, the bridge novel in Empire Bones.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see that. Is there anything you do differently about the Humanity Unlimited?
Write more books.
Obviously, I wouldn't say.
I'm not dissatisfied with anything about that series.
Okay, so what can you tell us about the two main characters in that series, for people who haven't read it yet? Because I think you'll want to when we're done, people.
Well, we've got one. So you're gonna have to help me with names because it's been a number of years since I've written these books. So my memory of names is gone out the window at this point. You've got the male character, which is the action adventure
Harry
Indiana
Rogers.
Jones. What's his name?
Harry Rogers.
Harry Rogers. And you've got a woman that is working on a dig as an archaeologist in Guatemala.
Correct. And that would be, I'm drawing up. Like, give me a second. I can tell you the name.
Was it Amanda something or another?
Yes. It was. Oh, crap. It's not on the blurb. I was checking the blurb real quick to cheat because I wrote the reviews. I can dig those up, but that'll take me a second. I'm pretty sure it is Amanda. Oh, Jess.
It could be.
No, it's in the book.
Jess. Jessica. Yes. All right. So once you've written these books and you've gone by a few years, yeah, it's out of your brain. You don't even remember who they were anymore.
So if you come back to it, do you just read the last book or would you read all four again real quick?
I think I would read all four again because I need to know what plot threads I left hanging.
I liked that you had one of the worlds having the revolutionary theme. Though that was kind of cool.
I thought that was pretty cool. If you're going to drag people, from time and stick them over there, why not go to the revolutionary times?
And then, of course, have them, because with the alien overlords, the way you wrote them and the constant ongoing war, you justified why technology stagnated in a way that I thought worked so you could still have fun with, flintlock rifles. And then, of course, when the aliens meet, their flintlock rifles against Gauss rifles, it ended about how you'd expect.
Yeah, pretty much how you'd expect.
Was there anything when you write those tags? So, one of the things I do, because I was in the infantry, when I write out the battle scenes, I actually sand table it to kind of figure out what makes sense. Is that something you do, or do you just wing it in your head?
I wing it in my head. Because even if I went ahead and put up a sand table and went through what I was doing, if I got to that level of description, I have failed because I'll have pulled the reader out of the story to describe all of the details of the fight itself.
I don't know. I like a lot of detail. I think, the new trend is less. I like more. I think Tolkien could have given us more details. So
have you read Tolkien?
I have a couple times.
That man can give you some details.
I know that's hyperbole, or, I just think, so when you come up with these worlds, is that something you just kind of roll the dice, or do you have go-tos that you prefer? Because this is
how do you mean?
When you created the alien planets that had and I'm trying not to give any spoilers, when they had distinct flavors that were unique to each planet. So you had the world that was very much so like destruction with the alien super strong short humans. That was left when their alien overlords left, and that was basically a wasteland. But then you had the revolutionary planet that was, just basically what you'd expect from, if you supplanted a bunch of people from the 1770s. When you pick out those designs essentially for those planets, is there anything specifically that makes one cool for you and not something else?
It's when I'm writing, whatever idea appeals to me the most at that time is the direction I go.
If you were going back to the series, and I really do hope you do, is there any other kinds of time periods you'd like to explore throwing people from?
I think Romans are overdone.
The Romans are cool.
Romans are indeed cool, but a little bit overdone.
Go with the Greek phalanx.
Same time frame, so I'm not sure that I would go with that either. I'm
thinking World War II era dogfights where, you're limited by the, you're capped on Earth, but it could still be cool to do the dogfight scenes.
Who knows? Maybe I'll vanish one of the modern aircraft carriers from World War II and make that part of it.
Yeah, it's you've got a lot of room left there for that. I think it's kind of cool. I do like that you didn't have. Sometimes there's a danger of authors writing characters too OP, so they're too overpowered to the fact that they can almost do no wrong. They become godlike. I like that you had them messing up in various ways, and sometimes it still works out, mostly, but it wasn't. It never felt like, of course, they're going to win because plot. Is that something you go out of your way to do, or is that just how you prefer stories on your own as well?
I prefer that I don't have overpowered characters. And I like them to have successes and failures, because if you have them fail and then come back up, then the reader appreciates it more.
Do you have like a formula in your head that you prefer? Like they're going to fail X number of times and then I'm going to give it to them?
No. Sometimes I'll get to the crux of whatever the issue is, and I'll just make the decision right there. It's not going to work out. Or I might have said, okay, we're going to slide through with a yes, but...
Okay. The yes, but is the famous one. You win, but it's just not what you thought you were getting. I've seen you do that a few times.
Or there's an unforeseen complication that's going to come back to haunt you in about 20 pages.
Yeah, there are times I was yelling at you for that. All right, so just because you did give us, Veronica hooked us up with this commercial. So that way you can hear the audio commercial for Humanity Unlimited. We're going to have that be the sponsor day. I'm going to air that just now, dear listeners. So buckle up.
Humanity will be free, no matter the cost. Deep in the Guatemalan jungle, buried beneath a forgotten Mayan pyramid, an earth-shattering secret sits, waiting. Its discovery will rip apart the illusion that humanity is alone in the universe. Engaged in a life-and-death struggle for the future of mankind, Harry Rogers and Jess Cook are forced to protect this secret from the most despicable foes imaginable. They must race across the globe to complete Liberty Station, the first true interplanetary ship. Only then can they search for the shocking truth behind what they found. They have no room for error, because failure means death for them and subjugation for everyone else. Presenting Liberty Station, Book 1 of Humanity Unlimited, written by Terry Mixon. Purchase your copy on Amazon and learn more about the author and his works at terrymixon.com.
All right, thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. So one of the things that I noted when I wrote my review for Upstream was that you did, after you got out of the Army, before you were a full-time sci-fi writer, you did work briefly for NASA. I understand you did help fake the moon landing, so thanks for that.
Yeah. Briefly is about the right description for working there for 16 years. Sure.
I mean, it's all relative. When you're pushing 100, 16 is a brief window of your life.
Back when I fought in the Army, back in the War of Independence.
I believe it. So, did that experience? Is that how you? Because when you were describing like the orbital mechanics stuff, you kept it very surface layer, but it didn't feel like you. It definitely felt like you understood the concepts more than some authors. There's a reason a lot of us use the Handwavium, because we don't want to figure all that nasty math stuff out. It definitely felt like you at least factored some of that in when you were writing. Like you had the scene about the space travel with the Liberty Station, which is the title for book 1, and with the zero-G maneuvers that happen when you show the gunfight in the space station with no gravity. Do you think your time at NASA helped you describe that, or was that more independent research you've done since then?
I think that was more independent research, although my time at NASA, working as an IT guy in the Mission Control Center, did give me a lot of flavor of how people like that behave and think.
Okay. When you were describing that, do you prefer doing the zero-G maneuvers, or do you prefer you can just graph plates?
Are you talking about where they were having the gunfight and
Yes.
things did not fly in a straight line because of the Coriolis effect?
Absolutely.
See, I had known that effect existed, and me figuring out exactly how I was going to use that as a twister in this particular fight scene was a lot of fun.
It definitely worked, and there were times I thought you were going to kill the main character because of that fight, the way it played out. I'm like, no, I don't think he'd kill a main character. He likes space opera more than some of the grimdark stuff. So I was unsure if you're gonna pull a fast one on us.
No, I only kill you in my novels.
I mean, I'll take it. Have you ever killed a main character before?
Sure.
Is that something? Because this one definitely, I don't know. I could see room for some serious, important personages to die.
Well, let's see. In Empire of Bones, the Marine captain that was in charge of everything, he ended up dying. He was a pretty big part of the role in the first half of the series.
He was, but I don't know. There are other characters that I was more attached to that I didn't.
What about Harry's dad?
That was torn. It was definitely a moving scene where you killed him, but like you had the main character Harry didn't like his dad so much that I kind of foresaw that coming. And then of course once he died, then of course he's going to start having nicer thoughts about his dad. So I don't know.
I tend not to kill very many characters that I like. The ones I don't like, they're more likely to go.
So for reference, I quickly pulled up my review. I described this as anyone who loves Stargate and Indiana Jones with shades of Cain and Abel thrown in for good measure.
Yeah, these brothers, they were pretty rough.
And like the mom that didn't like one of her sons, like the faction where each son picked I don't know that Harry really picked his dad, but he definitely liked his dad more than his mom. That was an interesting dynamic. I almost kind of wish that backstory was explored more, but not doing it kind of left the allure there where it's like, okay, well, did they? And you definitely left room because you didn't actually show the body where dad and all of that could come back without.
I'm pretty sure that nobody's coming back from that.
Well, first, like that's assuming they didn't find a way out, right? Like that's the classic misdirection you could do. And they didn't go back and look for a body because if the nuclear explosion went off, which is what happened.
Well,
spoiler.
let me go ahead and put this is spoilers for anybody that's listening to this, by the way, but anybody that's sitting there watching the counter on the nuclear weapon go from 1 to 0 while he's laughing his ass off is probably not going to survive the explosion.
I'm just saying it's sci-fi, so you could have the hand of God literally reach out with a portal and yank them. Right?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
Probably not. I'm just saying when there's no body, there's hope. There have been
keep dreaming, pal.
There have been plenty of fandom wars started over them. No, we didn't see the body. They're still alive in my head canon. Have you had any surprise fan reactions from this series that like they liked something that you didn't think they would, or dislike something you thought would be the cool part for them?
Not really, no.
So you read you're one of the lucky ones who likes the genre you write in because it's what you read anyway. I know some people like what they like is so niche that it'd be hard to make a career out of it. So does that, like having been so well read in the genre, does that help you kind of gauge?
Oh yeah. I know all the things that all the high notes that I have to hit to make a satisfying story.
I have that luxury too, because the things that I like to read are just kind of mainstream genres. Some of this more narrowly focused stuff, I feel for those authors trying to figure out a way to make money at that. Good for them, I guess, if they could figure it out. But
well, wait a second now. If you write what you like to read, then you're writing penthouse letters?
Sometimes I like to dress it up and pretend, but I've not hidden the fact that Yeti romance stories paid for my first edits.
Whatever pays the bills.
All right, it's whatever works. All right. I did that under NDA, so I can't say which books that was because I ghost wrote those. But based on what he paid me, they paid me. I won't assume gender. I think I just kind of outed that one. But based on what I was paid, they made good money off that because it's not the kind of thing you do as a vanity project, right? Like, I know people that have that one great story they want to tell, and I could see them paying someone ghostwriting type fees. because that's their just whatever. But you don't write that kind of story if you're not making money on it. That's all I'm saying.
Yetis is what is in. That's what's in.
It was in 2015 apparently. So is there a reason? So back to the main characters, you did have Harry have a lot of. He was special forces, and then he started a private equity company because the military was downsizing, with a bunch of ex-spec op guys who needed jobs.
It wasn't private equity; it was a private military company.
Isn't that what I said?
You said private equity.
Oh yeah, that's a big difference.
That's a big difference.
It is.
He's not a financial analyst. He is a guy with a gun.
I mean, he was definitely counting the beans, if by beans you mean bullets. Is there a reason that you chose that archetype? I mean, there was lots of ways you could have gone to give him super school's skill set.
It gave me the freedom to do what I wanted to do with him, and him pursue things that were a way to get him down into Guatemala like I wanted him to be.
That's fair. I dig that now when you wrote this, had the LiDAR found some of those lost cities that they've been discovering?
Oh yeah. Yeah, stories of that is what sparked the idea of putting it there.
Okay.
See, if I was going to write that today, they've started discovering these large structures underneath the pyramids in Egypt. I'm like, what's down there?
And if that's what they're releasing, what is the Bureau or Ministry of Antiquities or whatever it's been renamed a few times, the place in Egypt that maintains all of their ancient structures? I wonder what they're not telling us, because that's
where the alien ships are, beneath the pyramids.
There are videos from the 80s and 90s of them going, there's a tunnel underneath one of the Sphinx, and they're like, no, that's not there. But then there's actual video of the guy sending a camera in there, kind of thing. It wasn't a drone, but I mean, it might have been nothing but an air shaft. I'm not saying, but then they were like, nope, that's totally not there. So for whatever reason, they didn't want people to know, to get more curious. So if they're releasing that, what aren't they telling us is, I guess, the real question.
I'm not sure that they intended to release that information. I think somebody blabbed.
Always possible. So now that you've started, taking the society interplanetary, because you've got in this series them all over the place, is that something that you are going to explore with, like, what that might do to society, to cultures? Or do you like the old trope the Stargate used where it was secret and only certain people knew?
I think it'll go with the latter. Keep it secret. Keep it secret. Keep it safe.
Is there a reason that you like that, or you just think that's more likely what the government would do?
It's both more likely what the government would do, and it gives me more control over how I tell the story.
That's fair. Now, I'm throwing the cover up if you're listening at home, dear listener. You can click the link to the buy button and check them out yourself on Amazon if you want. Is this Amazon exclusive? I know you had talked at one point about maybe going wide.
It's exclusive.
Okay. So you can click the link and check out the covers, but is this something where you just needed an image, or did this speak to you in a certain way is why you went with it?
I just needed an image.
How much of a role, I know your wife does your covers for you. How much of a role do you particularly play in that, or is that something you just trust her to do?
It's something we'll talk about what I generally like to have there, and then she'll put it together and I'll go, oh, that's terrible. And then we go from there.
Okay.
She's got to satisfy my whims.
And this is the second one. I really like this spaceship that looks like layered bacon, so I'm digging it.
Everybody loves bacon.
Yeah, maybe it's my diet that makes me see bacon in this picture, but so book 2 has a uniquely shaped spaceship traveling in star, and I like that this one's brighter than the first one with that star in the distance. And yes, I know I'm colorblind, but I can see light and dark, Terry.
That's what you say.
This one was unique. I wasn't quite sure what to make of. This is obviously the launch point that you described, essentially like Cape Canaveral, but in Mexico.
But for aliens.
I like the spaceship that you put in the forefront. Like it's a fighter jet. It's
a space fighter.
Yeah. And then finally, you've got the spaceship butt on Blood of Patriots as these spaceships taken off through the asteroids.
I definitely had a lot of War of Independence themes going on through my head in the titles and what was going on in this series. So that probably explains why there was, Revolutionary War people in it.
I definitely picked the undertones up, but I liked it given part of the underlying plot was, America is no longer a superpower. And then what would she do if given the opportunity to regain that lost status? And so it was definitely an interesting. And then this is, of course, is the cover specifically for the first publisher pack. I like this one. This is one of my favorites. It's brighter. I like the look of the spaceship versus the space station. And then, of course, your second one. I like the space fighter on this one better than the one on the third one.
I can tell you that if I ever come back to this series, all the covers will be redone before I start publishing the new books.
What would you look for that cover?
I don't know, but it's going to be something that will happen at that time.
So you wouldn't try to go back to some of the old, I guess, what is it, STL files you grabbed for those? Because it looks definitely like it's 3D almost in like the art you use.
It was done in Photoshop.
Okay. But don't you tend to buy assets that you then use to?
I license assets.
Okay, that's the difference. So you would definitely go for a different look, or would you reuse some of the same elements?
I might reuse some of the same elements, but I'd have to look at it when I'm doing it because I'm not thinking about it at this point, so I have no answers.
I definitely like the look of the two publishers pack ones. They're brighter and they're I don't know. There's something about the vibrancy there. So, when you come to a series, do you generally, when you're writing, because like The Last Hunter was 16 books, I think there's 16 books now in the Empire of Bone series, if I'm correct.
There will be 15.
15. So you do tend to prefer super long series. Is that a preference, or do you have an ideal length for a series?
No, that's a preference.
So
I don't have a length in mind.
So you just let the story go until you find an ending you like?
Yeah, until I seem to wrap up most of the plots. The story will tell you when you're nearing the end.
When you get to the end of a series, like you've got the Humanity Unlimited, or excuse me, you've got like the Empire Bones, for instance, it ends at 15. Presumably the universe keeps going at the end of that. I mean, you're not going to go for the heat death of the galaxy. So do you ever consider going back to that universe, but like starting in a forward location from where the last one ended?
Absolutely. There have already been discussions in the series with Cheney about returning to this universe when I finish the series that I'm working on now. That's years in the future, but it's been discussed.
The Humanity and the Last Hunter series universe?
Last Hunter.
I could see that.
I intentionally left it open so that it could go on. And I'm doing the same thing with Empire of Bones.
Yeah, but at least from, I've talked to people who've read The Last Hunter. You definitely ended the main story arc that started the series. So it's not like
I did.
You just leave a cliffhanger, because there have been authors who just leave you unfinished with no satisfying ending. You didn't end the world, because obviously people go on living.
Well, they have a timeline of when the next major crisis is coming up, 10 years.
Right.
So that leaves perfect time for Derek and Amanda to take on leading roles in future books.
Absolutely. I like the way you incorporated the gaming element and how that could change things. You did that with the Empire of Bones as well. Is that you really believe the idea that people with gaming experience might translate into the future, or is it just as a gamer you like the idea?
I'm not a gamer, though. I've never been a video gamer.
But you played.
I grew up in the wrong time frame for that.
But I mean, one's an extension of the other. I kind of lump it all together.
If you say so. I'm a tabletop role player, and that's not quite the same thing as a video gamer.
Fair. Is there a reason you revisit that theme where, the kids kind of surprise everyone? Is there something about that speaks to you, or
it's an interesting trope?
Okay.
Just because they don't have real world experience doesn't mean they don't have experience.
And I could definitely see how in a hidebound military, the idea of like, what is it, 18? You don't really give ages, but presumably in their early 20s, late teens, based on the fact that one was a midshipman and one was at basic. Has there been any pushback from the veterans in your reader group for those scenes?
No.
Okay. Is there at any point in time that you're going to write a series, do you think, where you actually take existing political entities from now and push them into the future so you have...
No.
Or do you like making up a whole new organization?
I much prefer writing something where I'm making up something that does not exist, simply because people are attached to the politics of the time, right. And I have no desire to offend half of my audience.
Fair. Commies have money and it spends too. Commies
got money and they can spend it on me.
Absolutely. To support your commune, of course. So with this series, do you have any ideas on where you want to take it, or is that something you'll ruminate on when you have time to come back to it with
Humanity Unlimited?
Yeah.
I'll have to reread the books because I'm sure I had something in mind when I got taken away to other projects, but I have to read the books to figure out what that was.
Okay. Now I know you write by the seat of your pants. Do you ever outline it after the fact so you don't have to reread the novels, or like, do you have a process for that so you can keep track of stuff?
I normally do it on a novel per novel basis. And I have a Word document that I list open plots and things that I think I need to do. That's about it.
That just drives me bonkers. I'm a little too OCD for that. Like, I write everything down.
Wait a minute. You're OCD? With all the questions in the beginning of the show, I would have never guessed.
Fair. I think I wrote down political thriller, but in my head I put post-apoc, which is why all of the questions were themed the way they were.
We're like, I don't think that word means what you think it means.
Excellent. We just did our review of The Princess Bride, so excellent movie. Good quotes. Are there any, like, you do like to, on the one hand, you draw from fiction now. I like that you do that then instead of just everyone going back to Shakespeare. That gets real old real quick. I know why you do it, because it's like people use it because Shakespeare's not coming back to sue them. When you do quote the modern-ish for when you're actually writing, is that something you intentionally have it's there for us, but the characters don't always know exactly what it means? Is that by design, or just because
that's intentionally it? It's so that I can say what I'm saying and the characters don't necessarily have a clue.
Because I notice you do that a lot. They'll use an expression. I don't know what it means. It's just something someone said, and I liked it.
Mm-hmm. Because it sounded cool. We're just going to run with that.
Do you foresee ever like mentioning future, like make up a novel and then just quote that sometimes? Have you ever used that trope?
Nah. Not interested in that.
Okay. So when you start with the series, is it the premise that gets you, or the characters when you start something new? Is the characters first?
It's usually the characters. Very occasionally, an inciting incident will excite me.
So for Harry and Jessica, is it Harry that spoke to you first, or the female space engineer?
They came as a set because they're two halves of the whole in what I wanted to produce. So the two characters came as a unit.
I like that you can write a male and a female like that and don't instantly throw them into a romance, which you see sometimes in space opera.
It happens.
Not that you haven't written romance in your plot arcs, but at least with this one, it wasn't, of course they're going to get together. It was, they were off doing their own thing and trying not to die. So if you could live in the worlds that you write, would you want to?
I don't know, man. That's pretty dangerous places.
I mean, how much plot armor would you need to survive in the Humanity Unlimited world?
That's a pretty tough one there. Maybe in the Empire of Bones universe, it would be okay if I survived, the fall. So there you go.
The nanites, though, that could do a lot.
Can you imagine yourself all trussed up like a Marine Raider? Oh, I can. There would be so many crimes committed.
Yeah, I like the idea that with the Marine Raider stuff that you played with, a virus essentially allowed them to be taken over. Is an interesting trope on the embedded software that people even now are like, no, this could be the next great thing. Let me put
It's gonna be fine.
People are doing that now to get into like smart houses and stuff. They're putting chips in their wrists and stuff. No, go backwards. Give me I don't know. No, I'm not doing that. Okay. So you wouldn't want to live in this world. Are there any of your worlds that you would live in? Would you live in the Last Hunter universe?
I don't know. They got a lot of things going on there with the aliens showing up and blowing up things. Let's see. What would I live in? I don't know. I might live in the universe that I'm writing now. That could be exciting. I can't tell you anything about it. Even though the book is up for pre-order
with just a vague description.
It's up for pre-order and with a vague description, so I can't really talk about it till it comes out.
Yeah, and you obviously can't comment, but my vibe from the description was like Ocean's 11 meets space.
With Indiana Jones thrown in?
I didn't get that from the description, but I know he tends to up
something in the description. It says something about putting artifacts back in a museum. Museums always make me think Indiana Jones.
That's fair. Are you going to have space British people? Because, if you got stuff getting stolen for a museum, it's generally the British, right? That's how that works?
I didn't have anything like that. And I'm not actually having anything stolen for a museum. So there, take that.
Are there any lines when it comes to your fiction? And then I know we got to wrap this up because, I promised you about an hour. Are there any lines you don't cross when writing your fictions, or any plot points that you just think are off bounds for you for whatever reason?
I'm sure that there are. I don't tend to go near them, so I can't enumerate them for you. I know what I like. I write what I like.
Okay. All right. So is there anything that we didn't ask about this at Humanity Unlimited you think the listeners, the viewers, the readers need to know?
I think that you need to know that you can write a story that has political themes from modern day and still not directly attach it to modern day. That's what I think.
Yeah, there were times where the way you wrote The American at first, I was like, well, and then I'm like, well, yeah, but Terry doesn't hate the country because he served it. So, and then when I gave it the benefit of the doubt, I saw exactly what you're doing. But I definitely see that knee-jerk reaction on both sides.
Remember, when you're writing a story, just because a character thinks it doesn't mean the author does.
Also true. But this wasn't even something a character thought, more just a generic world description.
Sure. And you can write world descriptions that you think that you don't see the world as, but because they are interesting for a story purpose, you can go ahead and you can twist it around.
Okay. Was there anything interesting in the research for this novel, for the series specifically, that you did that you still had fun with?
Oh, digging around to the stuff in archaeology is always fun. Did
you go to any museums for that, or just do the online?
No, I did the online reading.
I don't know what museums are in Texas. I'm not saying you don't have any. I just don't know. I'm so spoiled because I'm so close to all the museums in DC. So
more power to you then.
I mean, you got to fight DC traffic though, which is kind of that's losing at life. All right. So if people wanted to stalk you, follow you online, how might they find you?
Well, they can find me on Facebook at Terry. I'm Terry Mixon there. They can find me at terrymixon.com, or you can buy my books on Amazon. Or I suppose you could listen to me on the Dead Robot Society if you really wanted to, and you're all righty geeky.
Yeah, I know there are some people in the audience, because I've, in the live shows you do on Saturdays, discussed it with them. There are some people that are just fans of yours and Paul's and Veronica's that aren't necessarily writers themselves.
Yeah, they just show up to see the mayhem.
And some of them think you hate me because you make fun of me all the time. I'm like, no, if he's nice to me, I'll think he's plotting.
Anybody that knows anybody that was in the military, they know that there's a level of poking fun at each other that just is mandatory.
Absolutely. Like I said, if you were ever nice to me, I'm like, wait a minute. Is he mad at me? What's he plotting? All right. So this is the part, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right book. So do your part. It really does make a difference. Keep in mind, you're writing to talk to your fellow readers. Not all authors read the reviews. That way lies madness, as Terry likes to say. So keep in mind, you're talking to the people you want to read it, so the books keep going, because if no one reads them, the authors can't afford to keep writing them. Editing ain't free. Covers ain't free. mortgages aren't free, unfortunately. I mean, I wouldn't mind a free mortgage, but it'd probably be like a cardboard box down by the river. That's about all I could afford for free. So, all right. You can find us, dear listener, on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChutes, the Rumbles, the YouTubes, the TikToks, the Twitters, the Spotify, the Discords. We have a Facebook page and Facebook group. We have our email, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. For professional purposes only, people. Save the shenanigans from us. Stabby Stab at the Instagram, the Twitter, and the email. You can support the show by going to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section, this is for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink that coffee brand coffee till it flows out of their nose, people, and then I will make them film the torture and let you laugh at them. And if you want some of that coffee brand coffee for yourself, the link is in the show notes. The code is podcast grunts. You get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win, people. These are roasted beans in America. They are not drop shipping operations. So you are helping keep your fellow American employed. They do ship internationally now. And if you want that shipping for free, we don't get anything for it. Just tell them we sent you, but you can buy their stuff on Amazon too. I too have partaken in the shipping policies of the great Zon. So that does make a difference. Do you have a favorite brand of coffee that you're drinking? I know you used to do Corpse Coffee for a while.
I'm still drinking Corpse Coffee.
Put a little dead in your cup. Is that why?
Put a little dead in your cup.
All right. They definitely, the dead themed coffee brands had some of the coolest mugs. I want to get one that's shaped like a human skull so you can drink, from the skulls of your enemies.
Are the skulls of your enemies dishwasher safe?
Now, that is a good, important question, and I don't know the answer to that. We'll have to Google it. And Google is never wrong, people, so just trust the science. All right, thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy and absentee co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. All right, people, thank you for sticking around. We really appreciate it. Thank you for coming on, Terry, and putting up with me.
My
Always
pleasure.
A pleasure.